Well, they're not all there yet. See, this is what it looks like.
Right. I have been in that room. Because there's chairs right out here where you and I are sitting. That's where I sat with Mark and Lisa that
And here comes somebody that looks like Luke.
night. Yeah.
Oh, Britt's on. Macy is.
Hello.
Hello.
And Jeffer. How was your day? Or is it Nicole? Can't tell.
That
I
was-
heard someone
Nicole.
heard someone say hello. Okay,
That
Nicole.
was Nicole.
I'm heading to the community center. Let's see, John and Macy, we can hear each other.
Can you guys in the room hear us?
I almost
I'm
had
gonna-
to stay home. I almost had to stay home for the same reason you are, Nikki.
I have some logistical parenting issues.
Yeah, kids get
You know.
excited at the best time.
I'll text John and Macy.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that
Hey,
right now.
Nicole, can you hear us?
Yes, Luke.
Yes.
All right, we can hear you as well.
Okay, fabulous.
Have you been able to hear us for a while, or is it just now?
Yeah, I think none of us were turning our microphones on when we were saying we could hear you.
Oh,
Oh, okay, cool.
that's a thing.
Yes.
Just yelling into the void.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be there shortly. Apologize, I'm not there yet, but I got Eddie out with the kiddos. So well, actually, we've got just hearing your voice. I know we got quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the June 3rd, 2025 BOT meeting, regular meeting. Macy, can you take a roll call?
It's 7:03 p.m. Mayor Billy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Here.
Trustee Corvalon,
Can't hear you, Tanya.
I don't think she's gonna be here this evening. Sorry for calling
Okay.
her name.
Oh yeah, and then Ty won't be either. You know that.
I can note for the record now that Trustee Corvalon and Trustee Ty will be absent this evening.
Thank you.
Trustee Larson,
Here.
Trustee Maris,
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. With that, we'll go right into consent agenda. We have 8 items on there. We've got warrants, a couple meetings worth of minutes, appointments to the PC, the DDA, the SAB, and BZA, and then declaring June as Pride Month. Any questions for John and his team on these consent items?
How many I didn't get all the way through all the applications. How many vacancies do we have left after the people have been appointed in this consent?
There's
I'm
one.
going off my memory, but there's one for the DDA, one for two plus one for SAB, and then what was the other one? Pro SAB has them.
Yeah, I think we had an alternate that I think is coming on, but I think we're still short one.
And SAB needs 2 regular members plus an alternate, and the DDA still needs a member.
Is
Yeah.
there I saw there's no pro sab appointments in the consent agenda. Did we not get any applications, or is there no official declaration of our alternate?
There were no
You see-
applications received for the pro sub vacancies.
And can we automatically appoint our alternate to a full-time or does she have to put in an application?
We've done that before with other boards. Yeah, but I can't recall the process specifically.
Okay. All right, we can follow up next meeting.
John, Jennifer, do you have I mean, is that something the board wants to do? Is that something the alternate wants to do?
I think both.
So John and Jennifer, thoughts?
Well, you
Need
might
to
check with
move
your
to an action
bylaws.
item.
It should probably be included in your bylaws as to whether that's something that can happen. And I'm looking at it.
Ours or ProSabs?
ProSab's bylaws.
Thank you. Actually, I think we could even go ahead though with this consent agenda and bring it up as other business and based on what you think, Jennifer.
Can I just mention something real quick to Jennifer, run this by? So right now we've reopened for applications June 2nd through June 23rd. So Caroline might submit an application before June 23rd to become a regular member.
Okay, well, the bylaws are silent as to this question.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's been doing a lot of work on the Prost, so I'm suspecting she wants to continue.
Oh, cool.
So if you're comfortable with that, we can reach out to the alternate and ask her to submit an application for a regular member by June 23rd.
That makes sense to me.
All right, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion in the second. Macy?
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
and Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Without going to our first of two action items, the first one being the town manager title change, changing Jonathan Kane's title from town administrator and to town manager for him and all future folks in that role. John? Jennifer? Sorry.
That's all right. Yep, I'm happy to present on this. So this was something that came up before the Board of Trustees at your last meeting in other business, and the board provided direction to bring forward an ordinance which affects the job title, essentially changing town administrator to town manager. And what the ordinance does is replace the words town administrator to town manager in every section of the code that it's listed. The other thing that's before you tonight is a resolution that is an amendment to John's employment contract with the town. And the resolution simply replaces town administrator with town manager. So I'm happy to answer any questions on either the ordinance or the resolution. Both of those would need to be approved.
Any questions for Jennifer?
Do we need to make a motion to approve those separately, or can we just do them both
Yes.
together?
Well,
Separate ones?
I think separate is better.
Okay.
Hey, Jennifer, just for the sake of the public, can you explain a little bit in terms of, why the change and, because we had provided direction toward this, but if you could add any more to that, that would be great.
Certainly. So towns have the authority. The position of town administrator is really your chief executive officer of the municipality. I would say, maybe 50 years ago, towns used the term town administrator, and moving into the 2000s, late 1990s, towns started to use the terminology town manager because it really encompasses the duties of what that CEO role does for the town. They're in a management function and they're the highest level position, administrative position for the town. So changing this from town administrator to town manager is really bringing forward the title for this position. And I like to say into the 21st century. There are no changes in job powers or job duties. So it's really just a title change to reflect the responsibilities of the role.
Thank you.
Any more quick clarifying questions for Jennifer or John? If not, we'll go ahead and go to public comment. I'll go ahead and go online here first, and then we can see if actually is anyone in the room
We have two people.
Okay, so I'll do it real quick with folks online, and then we'll go to folks in the room. Anyone online have a comment about the role of town administrator, that role the title being changed to town manager? Don't see any raised hands. So we'll go ahead and go to the room. Chris, do you mind just asking the folks there if anyone's?
Yeah, we have one person coming to the podium as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Mayor, town staff. This is Jim Reese, 66 Barker Road, Nederland, Colorado, and I just wanted to be here to represent the public. You guys were so fast in reappointing our PC members that I didn't actually get to speak in support of them, but I'm glad that they got the job again because we could really use the continuity in their experience. So I also agree that it would be great to have this change in title for our top staff person who's running the town manager. I do think reflects much more of the roles and responsibilities, and I am in full support of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else in the room have a comment?
It appears not.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'll be right there. Okay, well, let's go ahead and bring it back to the board for discussion and the motion.
Unless anybody has anything to discuss, I would move to approve ordinance 875, ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Nederland, retitling the position of town administrator to town manager and amending the Nederland Municipal Code to reflect that change.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Macy?
Trustee Miller,
Yes, please.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any
And,
other motions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. We'll follow up with a move to approve resolution 2025-12, an amendment to the employment agreement with Jonathan Kane to retitle it to reflect a title change from town administrator to town manager.
And a second.
Thank you. Macy?
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. The motion's passed. With that, we'll go on, excuse me, to our second action item of the evening, the support of the preservation of public lands. Is John there? I haven't heard him yet. Otherwise,
I'm here.
Okay, cool. You want to talk about it? You want me to?
Sure. First, thank you all for that. I appreciate that very much. Billy and I worked on this one together, so this has kind of been a partnership. We all know that we're surrounded by extensive publicly managed lands, and they're beautiful and they're special. And right now we're at a point in our country's history where I think there's a lot of question about what happens to those lands and how they're used specifically. And so Billy and I received a little while ago a resolution from the Mountain Pact, which is a nonprofit network of locally elected officials from mountain communities that really just states that we believe that continued federal stewardship of these lands is really important, not only for our community, but for the country as a whole. There is a resolution attached to this aim, and it basically reiterates that commitment. If approved, we would send this to our elected officials just as a statement of our support for these places that surround us. If you have questions, Billy and I worked together on this, so I think either one of us is happy to answer.
Is this something we expect to have any outcome, or is this more of a symbolic gesture?
I hope it's not just symbolic. I hope it's a good statement that, you know, reaffirms this country's longstanding commitment to public lands going back to the 1800s. I think that's what we're hoping for, but it's one of those things I think we just have to continue to work on those policy goals.
and it's written in a fairly nonpartisan way to really be, because it's going to be sent to folks who think very, all different things about this. So it's written in a nonpartisan way. My understanding is being supported by elected officials of both parties. And some of those statistics they show would kind of reflect the potential for that at least. But yeah, it doesn't, it's symbolic in that, we're letting a lot of folks, anyone who signs on to this is hopefully becoming part of the chorus, letting that opinion be known about the need to preserve public lands.
Follow-up question. Has this been reviewed by Jennifer, and did she give you any feedback about anything?
Yes, and Jennifer, yes, it was reviewed by Jennifer and Jennifer.
Jennifer may have had to drop off for another commitment, but she did review it, and I think the language is okay with her. But we can always have her take another look. But she reviewed it last week as we were writing this AIM.
The only edits she made were stylistic. It had come as a kind of somewhat templated resolution, and then we went through it and made it make sense for Nederland basically.
Great. Thank you.
Do we know how many other municipalities in Colorado are signing on to this?
I don't, but I could probably put that in my staff update next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see how far it's reaching.
Agreed. Other clarifying question? Now we'll go to public comment. Folks online, we have a public comment about this this action to have a resolution to support the preservation of public lands.
Not seeing anything from inside the room.
Okay, with that, I think we'll just bring it back to the board. Hello, how you guys doing? Bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. Any discussion item I throw in there is, we talk about being a town within a park, and all that park is public land.
All right, I move to approve resolution 2025-13 expressing the town of Nederland support for federal public lands and continued federal stewardship.
Second.
Macy?
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Sterling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Macy. The motion passed. Sorry, I was switching. I'm here now. Our first discussion item is on the bag fee ordinance. Thank you very much. The modification. I'm opening my computer again to the bag fee ordinance.
Mayor and board, we've got Cass with us who wrote this AIM for you, so I'm going to let her present.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so for this item, we really are just trying to make a small change to the ordinance for the bag fee. That really is just gonna help both myself and the retail stores administratively. So currently there is no minimum amount that the retail stores have to have in order to remit the bag fee. So we've been receiving all amounts of fees quarterly, including, $1, which is really more just a very small amount that we thought could be they could just hold on to it until there is more in their bag fee revenue. So annually they could have, maybe $4 to remit instead of one. But essentially we're wanting to make things easier on them as well as us, and just have certain retailers that are quote unquote small collectors of the bag fee be remitting annually. This is something that actually is outlined in the House bill for the Plastic Reduction and Pollution Act. And the House bill says that if an entity has less than $20 in bag fees to remit, then they will remit once they have more than $20 in bag fees. That, if you have a lot of different stores in your area, more than Nederland has, then $20 isn't gonna be a huge dent in the bag fee revenue stream, and it's not really going to be for us either. But we figured if we have those stores remit annually, then it's a similar idea as to waiting until you have more to remit to the town. So there are a number of options for this, and we don't have the actual language for the ordinance written up because we want to discuss what this could look like at first, and then have something for you to vote on if you do choose to change the ordinance in this manner.
Any clarifying questions for Cass?
Hey, Cass, would it make sense to just make it annual remittance fees for everybody? Or is there a big downside to that? Or could that maybe make things easier for you as well and for town staff?
Yeah, so I think for just the sake of knowing how much we're going to have in our bag fee fund, the larger remitters, which there are, a handful, we would want to know, how much they're going to be remitting, if it's $700 versus $1,000 versus 200, because things are probably going to fluctuate a bit as hopefully more people use reusable bags. So I think that would be the reasoning to have them remit quarterly still. But I'm not opposed to just annual remittance for everyone as well.
Are there any estimates of how much the average, business is going to be collecting on these? Just kind of so we have a sense of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to say at this point. So BNF, or sorry, the market at Mountain Market at Nederland has remitted about $700 so far for the first quarter. And then we have, Wild Bear, where their gift shop is remitting under $2 a quarter. And so it is such a wide spectrum. It's hard to give an average, but maybe for an average shop in town, it might be, somewhere around $50 per quarter.
Okay, so for the really small groups, even at a year, there may not be submitting $20. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would worry that if we allowed them to wait until they have more than $20 that they might just forget to remit, to be honest. And so like the quarterly remittance would just be a way to make sure that they are putting aside those funds to remit to us. And then we would still ask them to submit like a form saying how much they collected that quarter, just so that we could be aware of if things are fluctuating. And like if you do set a minimum amount that they are like meeting that, like say if you said if you remit less than $5 a quarter, you can remit annually, then like we'd want to make sure that those retail stores really are only collecting like, you know, a couple dollars a quarter.
Thanks, Cass. That touches on the next question that I had for you, which was kind of enforcement and tracking. But I like the idea of still having people fill out a form, but like each quarter, but the remittance being at the end of the year. That makes sense to me and seems like it wouldn't mess up the practical implications of kind of tracking of everything.
Yeah, definitely.
More clarifying questions? If not, we'll go to public comment. First in the room, any comments on the bag fee ordinance change or update? Looking online, any folks online, any comments on this discussion item? If not, we'll go ahead and bring it back. The request for direction, the question before the board specifically, does the BOT wish to proceed with a change to ordinance 862 to make it so small collectors remit bag fee revenue annually? And if yes, what amount does the BOT want to set so retail stores that collect less than that amount are eligible to remit annually instead of quarterly? And for which quarter shall staff collect the annual remittance? Or does the BOT wish to set a different type of threshold for annual remittance eligibility?
Jump in.
Thanks.
I think the $20 a year makes sense. I think what Cass has put this, $5 a month or $5 a quarter, excuse me. So $20 a year makes perfect sense. When it comes to which month or which quarter we should select, I would leave that entirely up to town staff. Is there a time that makes sense in terms of our budget to like collect at midsummer versus the end of the year because we are doing a lot of other budget stuff at the end of the year? Your call.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. What do we have a nod on that? Nods?
Yes,
Nod.
nod,
Nod from Tierney.
nod from Nicole.
And I'm nodding. So we have the 4 nods. We do wish to proceed with the change, and we are in line with the $20 a year. And we are just letting the staff make the better decision about when that would be. Does that work, John?
Yeah, that's great. Cass, do you have what you need?
Yes, I think that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Cass. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, that will go to our second and final discussion item in the evening. The Planning Commission's draft 2025 work plan. And John and Britt.
Hi guys, it's Britt. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Awesome. So the purpose of this aim is really just to present to you the Planning Commission's draft work plan, which was developed recently with the adoption of the comprehensive plan and the downtown area subplan. So staff is just requesting feedback and directions on priority, scope, and alignment with the current and future town goals, and then including the potential integration with the forthcoming strategic plan that you guys will be working on. So just to give some background, the Planning Commission discussed this at their meeting May 21st. And we just went over some things that we would like to tackle this year that came from those plans or things that have kind of just been on the back burner or the list. At our next meeting, We are going to be going over the Natural Medicine Act. As you guys remember, there was a moratorium on that. The PC is scheduled to have that as an action item, and so it will be coming back to you guys. So that's just kind of first item on our list. The ordinance amendment to Ordinance 856. We originally brought this forth to the PC for the deed restriction timeline, and then some items came up about the AMIs and percentages. And so in order to bring the deed restriction timeline back to you guys, it'll be a draft ordinance amendment at our next meeting. And then for final recommendation vote, and we'll be coming back to you guys to keep continuing that discussion. And the next item on our list is AMI targeting for affordable housing. The PC has expressed interest in reviewing the town's area medium income to target and ensure an alignment with regional data and involving affordability standards for the town. The accessory dwelling unit ordinance, there's some recent state legislation and local implement challenges suggested to reevaluate that ADU ordinance. And so we'd start like to start working on that and make sure it conforms with some of that new legislations. The next item on our list is industrial flex zone and the zoning review. This was recommended by the comprehensive plan, and the PC is wanting to explore those zoning regulations and if that flex zone aligns with the intended use pattern. This remains to be an exploratory policy conversation due to that land being privately owned. Design criteria and overlay districts. This is from our downtown sub-area plan. We've already kind of started discussing this information, and it's still a continuing conversation piece. And this is just for the potential new overlay district and design criteria to help really develop a guide for that downtown core. We'd like to start tackling the comprehensive plan study and implementing. And so just really using those recommended priorities by the team, the long-term and short-term, with potentials to tie to the board's strategic planning. Lastly, the PC would really like to look at Chapter 16. There's still some kind of conflicts within that chapter, and just a little bit of ambiguity. And so there really needs to kind of be a full code audit and update that's overdue. And so the goal would really be to kind of develop what that would look like and potential funding strategies with like a scope and timeline. And so today staff is just requesting, if you guys are in support of this draft kind of work plan we have before you, just a reminder, we'll have little land use applications and things that will come kind of in between this. But we're just looking if there needs to be any items revised, reframed, removed, or any additions. We're also looking if there are any specific projects you guys would like, or the board would wish to provide policy guidance, set expectation, or raise legal or procedural considerations. Sorry, I'm house sitting and their cat is obsessed with me. And so, sorry. Yeah, so pretty much we're just looking to see if this aligns with what the board is kind of thinking as you guys are going into your strategic planning process. And if you have some additional things you would like the Planning Commission to tackle along with staff assistance. So hopefully that was, if you have any questions or clarifying, let me know. Sorry for the interruption there. But yeah, that's just really what we have before you as we start making our PC forecaster, just as you guys have yours. We really just want to make sure it aligns and we're not missing out on anything that the board really wants us to kind of tackle and review.
Thanks, Britt. I have one question on AMI targeting. It said reviewing the AMI to ensure alignment with regional data and evolving affordability standards. Like regionally, Boulder County has a lot of really affluent places that would throw the numbers off or up. So what do you guys define as regional data that's applicable?
Yeah, I will let John kind of tackled this aim with me, so I will let him answer that if you don't mind, John.
I think that that's the conversation we need to have. I think really most appropriate is along the peak to peak. And I think you can go pretty much from Clear Creek County all the way up towards Estes Park.
Mhm.
And one of the things for us that's challenging and contextual is that we do have really wealthy pockets throughout there. And so I think what we need to do is take kind of an approach of looking at, there's a couple of different ways you can look at that. You can look at workforce, you can look at continuums of AOI, like where you're looking at different ranges. Because one thing we know is like our teachers and firefighters and people like that also have struggles living here. And so we can build some targeted models that will help us make sure that we're maintaining and retaining the community. But that's the work I think for the Planning Commission. I think their conversation is largely centered around what that looks like. And so I think that's really what the meat of that topic is figuring out how we address that.
That makes sense. Thanks. Other clarifying questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. The area median income, is that just within town limits or does that include the wider area?
Typically,
th-
it's for a metropolitan.
okay.
Oh, sorry, you can go, Britt.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Typically, you figure out AMI based on the metropolitan statistical area, and that's where it becomes challenging for us because it looks like Boulder or Denver. And obviously, we have like some pockets of wealth throughout this region as well. And that's largely based on area codes and zip codes and things like that. So what we need to do is kind of dial that in a little bit more. And what you see in places like Summit County and Grand County is this different kind of approach I'm talking about where you can target different kinds of AMI. In Denver, it works really well to say, well, we need 60% AMI. That doesn't necessarily get to the same level in a community like ours. So what we need to do is figure out specifically like kind of like targeted AMI ranges of what we would do. And it might be something like a way you could think about it is kind of return on investment. For an AMI targeting a lower income, you might have a higher degree of investment in that project, and investment just meaning that it's allowed. For a lower AMI, it might be the opposite, but that still might serve somebody who's working, in a community oriented job that just doesn't have enough to buy into the market as it is right now. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but we're going to have to bubble out our own little statistical area out of the metropolitan area. And there's a lot of data that we can use to do that in theory. So
Cool, like zip code might be something like we could do 80466 or
yeah,
something.
like a little bit more targeted. So it's not every zip code in Boulder, but
Yeah. Okay. Then on the industrial flex zoning, are there any other areas under consideration for that besides the tungsten, the tungsten industrial zone, or is there?
Yeah, I know there were a couple recommendations from the comprehensive plan and the sub area plan. The only reason that one really came about is because we have that kind of mixed use of residential housing and then that large parcel of industrial land. And so we really wanted to start thinking about, how that area is best used. Obviously, again, it's still privately owned, but, having conversations with the owners as well and seeing if it makes sense to have some of those flexible industrial uses so that parcel can actually have more use. But yeah, there's still other areas the PC is very interested in looking into. But just that one was kind of one that jumped out at us to start talking about here soon.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of like Stinky Gulch area there too might be something like that. Okay.
Yes. And I can add that specifically just to make sure that stays on the top of the radar. Because yeah, I agree with you. That area is a very mixed single family homes / commercial that doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah. And the last thing on just the direction, I just had a question about like annexation considerations. If that's something you guys are thinking about in your plans.
are you asking like about changing the rules for annexation, or if there's any upcoming?
Just kind of like a strategic planning for future annexations.
I would say, I think the best way for me to answer that question is to say that we've spent a lot of time working on the ordinance. And I think that any cases that would come before you, you'll hear in a quasi judicial capacity. So I think we are always working, Britt and I, it's principally Britt and I, but sometimes Jennifer as well, with folks who have inquiries like that. And when they do come forward, they come to the planning commission through that quasi judicial process. So I know that's not a great answer for you, but
Yeah, I
but we are,
was gonna
yeah.
also add that John and I have both, you know, really taken the time to read through and digest the information that was redone by Sterling and Eric Kuzinsmel, I think 2 years ago now, or last year, you know, I think it was 2 years ago. So we're prepared if someone is to want to come do that. I would say that. That
We have had
helps.
some requests about changing the ordinance too, and I think it doesn't really make sense based on the way it is written. I think it actually does. It does what it's supposed to accomplish. So I don't think we're contemplating any changes like that right now, unless we were directed.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just need to clarify. I don't understand. I don't understand why we would have a planning ahead for annexation when we don't choose annexation. People choose annex. You know, others do. So we don't get to plan who's going to annex next. In my mind,
We've mostly
Whatever.
been planning on our administrative side, like how we've gone through the process and kind of mocked it out between Britt and I, just so that if it happens, we're all prepared for how the ordinance works and everything.
Yeah, that's more what I was saying. It's like if some things happen, you know, we have a plan for how to manage that.
well, I think the ordinance that we painstakingly created, and Eric, you know, led the charge, is a clear path. If people, you know, if there's a move to like change that, that's different. But like the ordinance is a path. So
Can I ask a clarifying question? This is Tierney. This is my first strategic planning process that I've been through, you know, with the board, with the town. So I'm just curious, after we go through our strategic planning process, can we then give suggestions to adjust this plan? I just feel like I'm a little bit going in a little blind to really not knowing what our strategic plan is and trying to give you advice about your plan for the year.
Yeah,
And
so we,
yeah.
in the past, this isn't something we've actually done. This was just kind of something I wanted to do, and John wanted to make sure the board was aligned. But at the end, you know, we kind of came a little bit earlier because we want to start mapping out our meetings. But I think it's more than appropriate when you guys start your strategic planning to come back with us and say, hey, actually, we have some priorities we'd like you to kind of tackle first. But then this gives time for the PC to start tackling items and then add on those priorities that you guys might have after your process. So I think that's more than appropriate. I would just, you know, keep in contact with you guys and make sure that we're addressing that appropriately.
The board, the planning commission is your advisory board essentially, and they have some statutory roles, but essentially we want to make you are supposed to direct their work, and also staff should bring all of the board's work if it needs to get done essentially. Like, so for instance, the mushroom, the ordinance for not mushrooms.
Natural medicine.
Natural medicines, yeah. That's where the staff, we started that process. And some of these are relatively big ticket items that just are things that have been directed by the board previously or that we have been working on for a while. But I think that as we go through that strategic plan, one of the things we'd really like to do is make sure it's got a really clear path for what the boards are all generally strategically working on so that we can continue to evolve that process over time.
And because, yeah, and just real quick add on, I had already kind of made that statement to the PC in our last meeting and just saying that, hey, this is a great list to kind of get started, but please just leave room so that if the BOT does come back and asks, you know, after we go through our strategic planning and asks for some different priorities, just remain open to that because as you state, Tierney, we still have yet to go through our process.
Great. That sounds perfect. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
more clarifying questions?
Yes, this is Greta. Can you hear me?
Oh, I just like we'll be going into public comment in 1 second here, Greta. So
Okay.
I just thank you for your patience. Any more clarifying questions before public comment? With that, we'll go to public comment. Greta, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like a little bit more explanation on the industrial flex zone. And is that something similar to a mixed use? And the neighborhood flex, I've heard those different terms. And I'm curious to know more specifics since I haven't been on some of the meetings that had this zoning question come up for our family property.
Do you want me to go, Britt, or do you want to go?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can start it. So it's something that was outlined in our
Just one sec, Britt, if I
yep.
may. Greta, are there any more questions? Because I probably have you put it all out there and then have these guys reply.
I would be looking at, what are the features and benefits of it and potential property tax changes.
And then can I jump in? Greta, what is your last name and your relationship to town?
My last name is Booth, and I am one of the beneficiaries from the Ralph Meyerton's Revocable Living Trust.
Thanks, Greta.
You're welcome.
And we'll probably answer what we can here, and then I think a lot of the answers will come through the process later. But yeah, John.
So I think the answer is in the comprehensive plan and the planning efforts that were associated with it, there was a recommendation that we look at creating a flex zoning area in that space and some other spaces around town, like we discussed earlier. And I think that what it generally would entail is conversation. That's why it's listed as exploratory about what such a zoning district could look like. And because it is private property, that would be a conversation that property owners would be involved in as well. That it's just kind of like one of the things that's in the comprehensive plan that I think came up through the engagement process in the comp plan.
Yeah, so I mean, how I understand it is like it would be it would open up the potential for a mixed use. I think the things they talked about were industrial, commercial, and residential. I don't think there's any way to answer things about taxes in this forum at this time.
And that would not be a unilateral conversation on the town's part.
I'm also happy to email you this section of the sub area plan, Greta, and we can definitely talk about it more in depth if you'd like to sometime this week or next. But I can definitely show you kind of that breakdown of where that came from.
Yeah, and you're saying that could possibly be this week.
Yeah, more than happy to have the conversation with you because it was kind of a big part of that plan and just explain it to you. Again, like conversations will keep happening. And as Billy said, I can't really answer property tax stuff. But again, these would be conversations we would have with you guys. It just potentially what it was is this would allow to have more uses within that zone, which instead of just the current like industrial uses it has now, which would really probably benefit more than anything.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big part of what we were looking at. I mean, that
Yep.
kind of answers what some of the benefits are.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I will make sure to send you that just so you have that information, but I'll break it down because that plan is very large so that you can just see that portion of it.
Okay. Very good.
And we're not trying to be evasive about the taxation
Yeah.
questions. It's just genuinely something that can't be answered at this point.
I understand that, and you also would have the county involved, but it never hurts to ask because you never know who might have a little bit of input.
True. Like John said, it won't be a unilateral process.
True.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Any other comments? Jim, you can take more than 3 minutes.
Thanks.
Take time
I've
you
got, plenty of feedback on some of your questions there. Jim Reese, 66 Barker Road, Nederland, Colorado, also the chair of the Planning Commission. And I'll try to go down. We'll start with the previous homeowner, though. I did want to just let you know that this was based on a plan that is just looking at future possibilities. There's not any imminent plan for us to come in and change zoning on that. It's just exploratory, as it says in the document. And there'll be many meetings that you'll be able to be involved in and come and have public feedback. But right now, The only thing that can be there is industrial use. And what we desperately need in town is additional opportunity for housing and additional businesses. The industrial use is a very limited scope, and we don't really want a tire factory that close to town, or one of those kind, or another mill or mine or something like that. So it's something that we're looking at and was recommended for the next 10 years by the comprehensive plan. So take heart, you guys will be involved and have probably the largest say-so in that as the property owners. If you guys are against it, like Britt said, it's private property.
Okay.
Okay, yep. So on the ordinance 5856, so that kind of ties into the NED AMI that you were asking about, Trustee Miller. Part of it is we have it listed right now as 80% of AMI, and that is Netherlands AMI as it's written in there now, which is one of our planning commissioner members was very concerned that because of the high income level, we're actually higher than the city of Boulder, that puts it at about, $2,900 a month. And this is in order to be able to then extend this deed restriction, they might have to have 10% of the units that we want it. Is this really meeting the requirement? If we're doing something, working with them on a housing deal, whether it's we add some kind of property, town property, may or may not be involved, but whatever it is, services, additional consideration, reduction in fees, whatever it might be, we want to get something back. And right now, the return on that, because of current definition of AMI, is what's concerning several members of the Planning Commission. And so we're looking at hopefully quantifying that down to something that seems more attainable for somebody who's working at the BNF or Kathmandu.
Yeah, and just something that's more representative of the area rather than just town limits.
I'll tell you that Commissioner Dye would like to see it at 30%, and that's probably, somewhere between 80 and 30%. We were talking about in the discussion 50% being a number, but we really want to tie that into numbers and kind of see what that looks like, for now. Because, it's just very hard. It's hard for, and I say the grocery store, but even if you're a teacher, can you pay, $3,800, $4,000 a month rent here? Probably unlikely. So that's something that we're looking at working on. We did hear feedback from Trustee Sterling about, and from the staff about ordinance 856 on the timeline, where we had initially recommended that it was going to be 20-year minimum or greater, something that would be then identified based on the town staff's recommendation and our work. But we heard basically we'd prefer to see that be a higher threshold. So I think that the consensus, as that's coming back to us, was, we generally were in agreement that 30 years as a minimum was a better number. But again, we're somebody who is not only represents, the town and the public, but we represent what you guys are looking for. So we're always looking for feedback from the Board of Trustees. The design criteria and overlay district, that's probably the next thing that we're going to really tackle. And I've been able to meet with our new town manager, new title anyway, and talk about how that's going to come forward, but something that's going to be modeled based on what Idaho Springs has, but it'll be more specific for Nederland. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to codify what we want our standards in our downtown corridor to look like before we can actually get to and tackle revamping and updating Chapter 16. Basically based on town staff's time and availability. I mean, everybody's very busy. It's building season, and our town volunteers, the commissioners, or you guys are all volunteers too. You know how involved you are. And the reason none of us ran for BOT is we didn't want to put in the amount of time that you guys do. And so we really, as a commission, feel like it's too big for us to tackle alone, and to ask for Britt to be, squeeze this in, an extra 10 hours on your off time, which, she has none of. And so we're hoping that we can look at the overlay district as something that we can drill down and work on these things that are really about to come before us in the near future and get this stuff codified. And then hopefully at a time when there's a little bit more funding sources available, we're looking at a couple mineral grants that apply to something where we might be able to get an outside contractor to help us look at the code, examine it, recommend changes, and really, take on the bulk of the work and not ask it to be our town staff, which is already doing a fantastic job with limited resources. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
More questions or any questions for Jim? I mean, it's really not
Yeah, I mean, this
a usual public comment.
Right.
He's the chair of the planning commission.
this might have been more of a clarifying question, but how much do the second bridge plans in the master or the new comp plan impact your designs?
So we really, again, these are aspirational. I'll let John address this a little further, but a lot of these are large overarching plans that are dependent on many things falling in place, funding being a large thing, acquiring the property, and so there's a lot of pieces in there. I would say that I did forget one portion. I'll come back to a second. I will say that was something that basically came off a lot of the comprehensive plan pulled together previous housing study plan, traffic study plans, trafficability things and stuff. And so we actually pulled from data from other stuff. And so that's been a recommendation for a while due to evac opportunities and trafficability, but hasn't been something that was achievable. But I would like to address the annexation piece when we come back to it, but go ahead.
You said that perfectly. You're our expert planning chair, so I'm not adding to that. I thought you got it right.
On annexation, on that one, we've actually visited that. We had a specific meeting with our contract group, the SE, thank you, group, and sat down and looked at the maps, and we identified potential areas that would be possible for annexation, mainly based on where we could provide services, where it would make sense for town. There's some areas that, where, it's possible, but we don't want to try and figure out how to run town infrastructure, 4 miles away, to get some flagpole community in there. But we did put quite a bit of effort into that, and that was all put into the comprehensive plan. And if you look in there, it's one of those things you looked at and kind of called out a couple errors on that, but it's got some areas identified. But of course, we know that annexation has to be initiated by the property owners of the area. But we were just forward planning, as you said, to see what would make sense for us for infrastructure. And possibly, no, I don't think, I take that back. We did not consider tax base. It was just infrastructure.
Yeah, it was mostly water, wastewater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like, one of the big priorities. And fire hydrant access.
Okay. Other than that, if you don't have any other questions, I just want to be able to add a little color to that and take your feedback directly. I realize now that you clipped right along, and I'll make sure and get here promptly at 7 next time I have something right up early on the agenda.
I was just going to add, you guys look at the 3-mile map. That's an annual requirement for you. So you'll continue to do that work on the annexation.
Yeah. And basically that'll just be an item. They'll come up and we'll look at that. And if something changes, if there is actually interest in a community coming forward or some kind of project, then, we'll address it as soon as that happens. But, right now, we've just been proactive based on what makes sense infrastructure wise and basically geographically, what's close to town in that 3-mile plan. So, okay. Thanks very much. Appreciate all your guys' good work. And I will endeavor to run my meeting as efficiently as you're running your meeting.
This is
The multitasking at the beginning there was just amazing, Mayor Billy. I'm impressed.
The what?
The multitasking.
Oh, yeah.
Running the meeting.
Sure sign of an
Thanks, Jim.
ADD mind. Thanks, Jim. And real quick, did you say, John, 3-mile plans are annual requirement?
Yeah, they need to be
didn't know
reviewed annually and updated. It doesn't need to change, but it needs to be essentially certified.
I didn't know that. Cool. Thank you. Great. Any more public comments? I think got everyone in the public who's attending. With that, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and requests for direction. So staff requests that the Board of Trustees provide general directions on the following. Does the board support this draft work plan as the Planning Commission's 2025 agenda? Are there any items that should be removed, revised, or reframed? Are there specific projects where the BOT wishes to provide policy guidance, set expectations, or raise legal or procedural considerations? Should any topics be delayed or accelerated to align with broader town goals? And is there any additional planning, zoning, or long-range development topics that board would like the PC to address in 2025? So what are folks thinking?
It looks good to me. This is Tierney. I would support the draft work plan, and I have nothing that needs to be, or that I would suggest revising or reframing.
I agree. I think it's a good working plan to get everyone started.
Agreed.
Okay, and a nod, and me too. So 5 of us agree. So I'd say with number 1, we support the draft work plan for 2025 and with no items amended. Any specific projects the BOT wishes to provide guidance, expectations, or raise considerations?
Nope.
Nicole and Tierney, anything?
No, I think I'm no for the rest of these questions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Me as well.
Okay. How about you guys?
My only comment would be with the design criteria and overlay districts, if that should be something that should be prioritized given some of the things we think might be coming down the road.
Yep. Cool. I agree with that.
Yeah, and those conversations have already started, but what I'll do is make sure to like kind of keep those updated in my staff report. And then just letting you guys know at each meeting kind of where we're at with that, if that's helpful at all.
Thanks. Yeah, I can guarantee you Tanya Corvin agrees with
Okay.
Chris Larson on this one.
A note,
Yeah.
I talked to Cheney Bostic today, who is the person who did the sub-area plan, and she's willing to help us out of the kindness of her heart to kind of get it across the finish line. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but we got some professional help on that.
Awesome.
If we've got professional volunteer, that's another reason to do it quickly, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Great. Do you have the direction you need, Brett, John?
Yes, and then since staff will be involved in your strategic planning, I will continue to, stay updated on any priorities you guys have there and bring them back to the Planning Commission for future updates.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you guys all for the feedback. We appreciate it.
You bet. With that, we will go to other business. Does anyone have any other business? I have one item, and I'll just forward it to you all. I had signed this back in February, kind of aligns somewhat with well, not really. Similar kind of request for more support. I'm in a group called the Climate Mayors, and I had signed a letter back in, I'd say it was November 6th, supporting the Paris Climate Initiatives Agreement, and then in February signed a letter about supporting the protection of the clean energy tax credits available to local governments. So I'll forward it to you all. You get to challenge by choice. You can sign it independently if you want or not, but it's not something we vote on. It's just something you guys can choose to. I'll forward it to you, and you can decide what you want to do. My one pitch is that I work in that world, and the present administration is trying to pretty much wipe out the IRA, and including a lot of valuable tax credits for new construction and heat pumps and clean energy. Both this is for the development of clean energy as well as for energy efficiency, and it's kind of doesn't make sense for the amount of money that's spent to run these programs. It saves the Energy Star program alone costs $30 million a year to fund, and it saves over $40 billion a year. So, anyways, you can read these and make up your own mind.
You seek logic in this administration?
Seems light. Yeah, I mean, it seems like, some of it is about just streamlining government, which it makes sense, and the thought that, the government doesn't need to run some of these things, but some of these things were created under Republican administrations, like the EPA and most of these tax credits and the Energy Star program. So it's interesting. Any other business?
I have one small one. I just wanted to bring up Roy Young's many emails to the board on the DDA, the NDDA budget and the TIF.
Tax increment financing?
Right. And just see if that's something that we want to give any direction to the NDDA to address, or something we want to talk about, or several emails.
Do you want me to address that question?
Well, I just kind of wanted to bring it up since it's come up a few times over the last month or so.
I think there's a couple things to remember about this. If you remember, we were working on the bylaws and the MOU that we have with the NDDA, and we don't actually currently have an MOU. And I think what it is that DDAs are structured in a way that is kind of a funkiness in government, if you will. It doesn't, not everything is as aligned as it perfectly as it could be. And so what we need to do is be really intentional about arrangements and working agreements and things like that. Jennifer and I today met with the attorney of the DDA, and we were raising some of these questions because we've been working on this document now for quite a while. And there is some statutory limitations on the town. Ultimately, you control the DDA. You could dissolve the DDA. If you did that, the town would have to refund that money. So it's not like we get to keep it. But with that being said, you guys have a couple of really important documents at your control that give you some say about how this is done. One is the comprehensive plan, which we have a really good one now. One is the sub-area plan, which is essentially part of the comprehensive plan. And then there's another document that exists but needs to be updated. It's called the plan of development. And that's a statutory document for the DDA that gives them buckets to work within. And I think that that's the place where we can really make the rubber meet the road on what you're talking about right now. So in my mind, the way that this works, you had already given direction. We had some minor modifications to the DDA bylaws and MOU just to make it abundantly clear how the relationship works. Once those come back to you and are approved, the next step is that plan of development. And one of the things that happens with the plan of development is it binds them to a certain activity level. In the MOU, we're currently contemplating an annual review of that plan of development, and that would not include like a full-on financial plan for every single element of that plan, but it would be helpful in processing and creating a budget. As you remember, last year in the budget, they have to, I don't know if you remember this, but they have to have their budget. We have to have ours approved by December 15th. If they don't, it means that they can only appropriate like 40% of their, what I don't know the exact percentage, but a smaller percentage of their budget from last year. So what we can do is if we can get the plan of development finalized, which is really the sub-area plan, the recommendations of the sub-area plan, that allows us to have a little bit more control over how those decisions are made and what kinds of decisions are made. And it's going to be a collaborative thing. And this is one of the reasons why it's really important to have your board member have voting rights on the DDA, because they can help make sure that that stays aligned and that projects happen correctly. One example also I just want to mention is on the signage project. We're trying to build in some better processes for how they would work with staff beforehand, because we're talking about right of way here for CDOT and for us. So we want to make sure we get those processes out of the way before it becomes a problem for them. And I think these are ultimately just administrative issues that need to be nailed down and figured out. But I think this is a very important question to continue having. I think one of the goals of the strategic plan this year really should be how the board works with your advisory boards and your boards that you appoint, and just thinking about those relationships and how they work back and forth. And honestly, I think it's one of those things you just keep working on, continuous improvement and trying to make things better. But I will tell you, I think the DDA is working really hard to I think they saw a need to evolve over the last couple of years and like think about things a little bit differently, and they have been pretty responsive about that. And so I think really the next step is just this process of working with them and finalizing things. And I think I'm hopeful we'll have that MOU and bylaws on your next meeting, but just depending on, when things get clean.
I did respond to Roy, and I said right now the charter of the DDA is at least 10 more years or something like that. And I just said there's an opening on the board if you want to turn in an application. I don't think it's good. He replied, it's not a good time for him to do that right now, but that would be one way to make a difference.
And I remember at least a discussion about whether the BOT would need to approve expenditures or budgeting in the DDA. But I don't remember if we
You
came
have
to any.
explicit statutory approval to approve their budget. And what we need to do and what we're allowed to do is have that plan of development be updated to reflect the projects they're allowed to do. One really important thing for DDAs is the test of public good. And that is a part of the statute. And, not to get too full on nerdy here, but essentially what it says like our DDA was created specifically to essentially build infrastructure downtown. And it also is created to serve the needs of the community within that boundary. And by extension, all of Nederland or whatever. So what there should be as we kind of go through in this forward, we want to look at these projects and say, is this something that would demonstrably improve that area? The primary thing should be, I believe, based on how the ordinance is written and how the statute is intended to be, it's kind of about infrastructure, but they do have latitude. That's where they get latitude to do programming and flowers and things like that, which also improve the overall district. And so I think what the important task for you is that at the budget approval, we need that plan of development document. So you have criteria to say, these are the things that we agreed on. And now how is this fitting? And I think that was what from their perspective, when they presented that budget last year, they were saying, here's big buckets and we'd like to spend money on these big buckets. But I think what we need is just a little bit more dialed in and like more demonstrable proof of public good, I guess, for those projects.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you replied to Roy at all, or are you gonna bother?
I have not. I can do that too, though.
I could just refer him to tell him to listen to the end of this meeting.
I'll send him an email. I'll go talk to him tomorrow or call him or something.
Yeah, I mean, only if that works. Thanks, everyone. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Public comment and non-agenda items. Sorry, I gotta do this. I don't think there's anyone left in the public other than Chris Kelly, but no one's in the room. Oh no, Greta and Chris Kelly. So if anyone has a public comment on a non-agenda item, now's the time. Sorry about that. If not,
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Macy?
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
and Trustee Larson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 8:15 p.m.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night from Greta.